Welcome to Sharp End. And if you think the studio looks a bit different this week, you're right. They've let us out. We're in the European Parliament in Strasbourg to check up on these four, the two men and two women who represent Wales as MEPs. Their debating chamber got a bit more crowded this week as Croatia became the 28th member state. A sign perhaps that for all the crises, the arguments and the budget cuts, the European project rolls on. But could it be rolled back? And should it be? Is Britain being left behind, and would that be a bad thing for Wales, for the UK and for Europe? Well, I'm delighted to be joined by four people who don't agree about the answers to those questions. They are, of course, Labour's Derek Vaughan, the Conservatives' Kay Swinburne, Plaid Cymru's Jill Evans and John Bufton from UKIP. You're all very welcome. Actually, you should be welcoming me, I suppose. I've come out all the way. I don't think we've been bugged by the US, by the way, so I think we're okay for the next half hour at least. Okay, Kay Swinburne, are you frustrated that your party's been hijacked by the Eurosceptic wing?
No, I'm not, because I was born in the 60s and I have never had a vote on the EU and on the UK's membership of it. And I think the whole idea that you have to let Britain decide as a democratic population what they want with regards to their future is really important. And so for me, it's a question of when, as opposed to should we. And so I do genuinely trust the people of the United Kingdom, Wales and the rest of the United Kingdom to make the right decision. And when the time comes, we'll know what that decision will be, and the in-out referendum will depend upon what happens in Europe over the next few years. Not just what the UK can renegotiate, but what happens to the whole of the EU as it expands and as it develops.
Okay. Believe it or not, these four may be sworn political enemies, and you can tell they don't agree on many things, but sometimes they do hunt together as a pack.
I'm pleased to say that two of my colleagues are here tonight as well. We do try to stick together as well. Lots of ideas about future EU-funded projects.
They might not agree on the size of the EU budget or even whether or not we should be in the EU at all, but they all want as much of the money as possible that's going to flow to Wales. Here they are, congratulating Swansea University on securing its share of the dosh and celebrating that the going rate for Wales of more than €2 billion every 7 years has been secured once again. There we go, Kay Swinburne. It wasn't the UK government, it was Derek Vaughan and the Welsh government and their lobbying efforts.
Well, I'm very glad that he's lobbied successfully, but I would like to think that it's been a team effort and we should not be actually allocating anybody credit for this. The UK has actually fought as a pack in this instance too, and I think it's very, very fair to say that England and English counties have realised that they actually are in a position to cope a lot better.
Well, I'm not sure about that, and we'll be discussing that in a minute. But in terms of responsibility, it's fair to say as well that the whole reason this situation has arisen is because of your party, your government, that wanted a cut, wanted the budget to be reduced. That's why we got here in the first place.
Well, actually, it's about fair and being equitable. If you're actually cutting your budgets back home, you cannot expect to actually contribute more to an EU budget that you have no direct control over. That's about fairness.
Okay, Jill Evans. If this institution wasn't happening, we'd just keep the money at home.
Absolutely, but the reason we get the money is because of our levels of poverty, and that in turn is because of UK government. But of course
it's a scandal that there's still those levels of poverty, isn't it?
Of course, and there have been mistakes in the past with the funding. We need to look seriously at that. We need to look at other countries and where they've done better than we have. But imagine the situation in Wales if we haven't had that funding. We certainly wouldn't have had that money from London.
Okay, a quick word from Kay Swinburne.
But I think we do need to be careful here. The last tranche of funding for the regional funding, actually structural funds, has taken from 1 in 3 people in Europe actually in a deprived area to 1 in 4. So they are working across Europe. They're not working in Wales. And we need to ask those very big questions. Why haven't they worked in Wales for 2 tranches?
All right. Incidentally, I was interested to read what Douglas Hurd had to say at the weekend, that the UK in 10 years' time will still be in the EU and actually considering joining the Euro. Is that a view that you share?
I don't share that particular view. I think we'll be outside the Euro forevermore, and I think there will be other countries who'll stay outside the Euro as well, despite the fact Latvia's joining in the next few weeks.
So will the UK miss out as a result of that?
I don't think so. We already have what I would describe as a multi-speed Europe. We all have different membership of different parts of the EU projects right now. Schengen area, the free movement of people, actually happens in a large number of member states, and some of those member states who are affiliated by free trade, such as the Swiss. So Schengen is a big EU project, just as big as the Eurozone, but actually there are different members of that as there, to that of the Euro. So we actually already have a multi-speed Europe. We're in justice in some things, we're not in others. We've already had this ability to participate and not participate. So multi-speed rather than two-speed.
And Kay Swinburne, do you notice a second-class status here? Do you feel like a second-class MEP?
Absolutely not. And in fact, things have really dramatically improved here in terms of negotiating since David Cameron stood up and said, actually, we need to actually look at reforming the institutions. Certainly in every discussion.
These two are shaking their heads either side of you.
I actually sit on the Economic and Monetary Affairs, where we've been talking about banking union. We've negotiated this actual dual voting mechanism for the first time ever, where the ones outside the Eurozone, the single market is protected from those who might coalesce within the Eurozone. These are major, major steps. And I have to say, given that we have agreement, consensus, and actually unanimity here in plenary for some of these votes, it's actually moving a long way.
Well, sort of consensus, sort of harmony, but lots of shaking heads, so not quite. Thank you very much, all four of you, for welcoming me.